أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Lesson number 86, Surah Al-Anam, ayah number 141 to 150. وَهُوَ الَّذِي, and He is the one who أَنْشَأَ جَنَّاتٍ مَعْرُوشَاتٍ, who causes gardens to grow, trellised, وَغَيْرَ مَعْرُوشَات, and untrellised. وَالنَّخْلَ وَالزَّرْعَ, and palm trees and crops, مُخْتَلِفًا أُكُلُهُ, of different kinds of food, وَالزَّيْتُونَ وَالرُّمَّانَ مُتَشَابِهًا وَغَيْرَ مُتَشَابِهٍ, olives and pomegranates, similar and dissimilar. كُلُوا مِن ثَمَرِهِ, eat of its fruit, إِذَا أَثْمَرَ, when it yields fruit, وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, and give its due on the day of harvest. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ, and be not excessive, because indeed He does not like those who commit excess. In these ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions different kinds of provision that He has provided His servants with. And through them, He makes us recognize who He is. And if you look at it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us about many things in the Qur'an. He teaches us about Himself. He teaches us about His angels, about His prophets, about the Day of Judgment, about the past nations, about what is to happen in the future. And at the same time, He also teaches us about the world around us. So along with everything that is necessary for our ibadah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also teaches us about the world that is around us. Because a believer, he cannot worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a cell or while being cut off from everything and everyone. He lives in this dunya, and he must have the eye with which he reflects on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. So we see that in this ayah in particular, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us about botany, about plants. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who ansha'a. Ansha'a is from the root letters Noon, Sheen, Hamza. And nash'a, nushu, is to rise, to emerge. And insha is to cause something to rise. And primarily, this word is used for creating something and making it grow. Creating something and making it grow. And everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created and He causes it to grow, it grows gradually. Never does it happen that you have something that comes into existence one day and the next day it's in its full size. No, it takes time. It takes different stages. So, ansha'a, He is the one who has produced, He has created, He has made it to grow gradually. What has He grown? What has He produced? Jannatin, gardens. Why? So that people can benefit. So that human beings, they can benefit. Not so that people divide these jannat and the produce of these jannat into various parts, and that they should dedicate some to their idols, some they make forbidden on themselves. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created jannatin. Why? So that human beings can benefit. And the word jannat is a plural of jannah. Literally the word jannah means a garden. From this, the jannah of the hereafter is also called jannah. Why? Because that is also gardens. And Jannah is used for such a garden which is dense. Which is dense, meaning there's a lot of trees, there is a lot of grass. Basically the earth is covered by greenery. The earth is covered by greenery. Sometimes you go to someone's backyard, or maybe even a garden or a piece of land, but what happens over there? There's no grass. You see the earth, the soil that is being exposed. So He has created jannatin which are very dense. And these jannat, they are ma'rushatin wa ghayra ma'rushat. They are trellised, and they're also other than being trellised. Now what does it mean by ma'rushat? Ma'rushat is the plural of ma'rusha. And ma'rusha is from the root letters ayn, ra, sheen. Arsh. What does arsh mean? Throne. Where is the throne? Generally. Any king's throne. It is high. It is elevated. It's elevated from where the rest of the people are sitting or they're standing. So, arsh is the roof, and ma'rush Ma'rusha. Ma'rush is that which is raised up to the roof. What is it? That which is raised up to the roof. So basically, it is that which grows upwards. Now think about it. Plants that grow on vines, what do you have to do? Do you let them just spread across the land? Some plants, what do? Some vines, they spread across the earth. They grow horizontally. But others, they have to be grown vertically. Now in the wild, what's going to happen? They will grow over trees. But generally, when people plant them, what do? They build a particular structure, isn't it? Like a framework that is either wooden or metallic or something like that. And they tie the plant with ropes or something. Why? So that the plant can grow upwards. So ma'rushat are those who grow on trellises. And what is the trellis? Trellis is the frame on which the vines, they grow upwards. Arashtul karam. It is said arashtul karam, meaning I made a trellis for the grapevine. I made a trellis for the grapevine, so that the grapevine can grow upwards. And every trellis has to be high. And because of this, the meaning of arsh gives a sense of height. And from this is the arsh of the king, the throne, which is at a height, which is elevated. So ma'rushatin, meaning those vines that are spread and they grow on trellises, they grow upwards. So he is the one who has made jannati ma'rushat wa ghayra ma'rushat. And he has also made such jannat which are not grown on trellises. Now what does it mean by this? What does it mean by ma'rushat and what does it mean by ghayra ma'rushat? There are several opinions. First of all, it has been said that ma'rushat refers to climbers. Meaning those plants that are grown on trellises, that climb upwards. Those plants, those vines that grow upwards, they are grown over trellises. Like for example, grapevine. Similarly, kiwi, that also grows on vines, which grow upwards. They are actually climbers. Secondly, they said that ma'rushat refers to, according to Ibn Abbas radhiyallahu anhu, it is any vine. Whether it is grown on a trellis or it is not grown on a trellis. So for instance, creepers or ground cover plants. So for instance, strawberries. What do they grow on? Vines. But are they grown upwards? Are they put on trellises? No. They are creepers. They're ground cover plants. They spread over the earth. Similarly, runners. So for instance, cranberry, watermelon, squash, honey melon, cantaloupe. All of these grow on what? Vines. But these vines don't grow upwards. Because if they were made to grow upwards, what would happen? They would fall down. Because the fruit is so huge, it is so heavy, that the vine, it cannot bear the burden. Then it has also been said that ma'rushat refers to tall trees. What does it refer to? Tall trees. That reach up high, that grow upwards, which are very tall. Like for example, the date palm. And on the other hand, there are ghayra ma'rushat. Then what does ghayra ma'rushat refer to? First of all, it has been said that ghayra ma'rushat refers to those vines that are not grown on trellises. What was the first opinion with regards to ma'rushat? Those that are grown on trellises, that grow upwards. Then ghayra ma'rushat refers to which ones? Those which are not grown on trellises, but they spread on the earth. Like vines of squash, watermelon, cantaloupe, strawberry, etc. Secondly, it has been said that ghayra ma'rushat refers to all other plants and trees that are not vines. Ma'rushat are vines. Remember the second opinion I told you? Ma'rushat are vines, according to Ibn Abbas, which grow upwards or down in the ground, whatever. Any kind of vine. Creepers, crawlers. And ghayra ma'rushat refers to all other types of plants. See how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has categorized the plants for us? That human beings over years and years of study, then they have come up with these terms, and then they have categorized them. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Khaliq, the Creator, He has already told us about the different categories of plants. So ghayra ma'rushat are all other plants and trees that are not vines, that rise upwards on a stem. Whether they are trees, or they are crop, or they are shrubs, whatever. And thirdly, it has been said that ghayra ma'rushat refers to those vines that grow in the wild. That grow in the wild. that grow upwards on trees. Because human beings, what do? They make the trellises. But in the wild, do grapes not grow? Of course they do. In the wild they do. So what do they grow up on? On other trees. Sometimes you see trees that are covered with vines. Sometimes you see a building that is being covered up with a vine. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who has made jannati ma'rushatin wa ghayra ma'rushat. And He has also made وَالنَّخْلَ and the date palms, وَالزَّرْعَ and the crops. What does zar' include? Wheat, barley, rice, grains, etc. And all of these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says they're mukhtalifan, they're different from khala and fa. Ukuluhu, it's fruit, it's food, it's produce. Ukul is from the root letters, hamza, kaf, lam. Meaning, all of these different types of plants, and trees, and shrubs, and vines, what do they produce? Different types of fruit, different types of produce. Some are producing grains, others are producing fruit, others are producing vegetables. So, mukhtalifan ukuluhu. And how are they different? In type, in color, in form, in taste, in texture, in nutrients, in fragrance even. There's so much variety in even the plants that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. If you just go to the grocery store, sometimes you wonder, okay, what plant is this? And what fruit is this? And what vegetable is this? And sometimes we only know the fruit or the vegetable, and we don't know how it grows. It's very important to know what type of plants even these fruits and vegetables grow on. So مختلفا أكله. The ukul, they're varying. وَالزَّيْتُونَ and the olives, meaning, and He is the one who has created the zaytun. وَالرُّمَّانَ and the pomegranates as well. And وَالزَّيْتُونَ وَالرُّمَّانَ, meaning they're similar in some ways, but they're different. مُتَشَابِهًا, they're similar. وَغَيْرَ مُتَشَابِه, and they're also different. At times what happens? Fruits are identical in their size, in their color. If you get two pomegranates even, identical in their size, identical in their color. Maybe they're thicker even. But then when you open them, they're completely different. Aren't they? One turns out to be very sweet, another turns out to be very sour. One turns out to be very bright in its color, another turns out to be not that bright in its color. So mutashabihan wa ghayra mutashabih. They're similar and they're also not similar. How? In taste, in quality, in usefulness, they're different. Kulu min samarihi, eat of its fruit. What does min samarihi, what does he refer to? All that has been mentioned over here. Whether it's the produce of jannati ma'rushat or ghayra ma'rushat or an-nakhl or az-zar' or the zaytun and ar-rumman, whatever it is, any produce that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, kulu min samarihi. What does that show? The permissibility of all fruits and vegetables. What does it show? The permissibility of all fruits and vegetables. They're all permissible, even grains. Now it depends on what a person does with them. That could perhaps make them unlawful. For instance, if a person makes wine out of grapes, then that is not going to be permissible. If they take it out of wheat, even that is not permissible. But primarily, all fruits and vegetables are permissible. There's a very interesting incident that happened, a very funny incident rather. Somebody we know, their child was very young, and they were studying abroad, and everywhere they went, the child would want to pick up a particular food at the grocery store, and they would say, no, this is not halal, this is not halal. So finally when they went to the produce section, the child picked up the apple and said, is that halal? So sometimes when there are so many things which we're told, okay, this you can't eat, this you can't eat, then you wonder, okay, is this okay, is that okay? So what do we learn? That primarily all fruits and vegetables are permissible. All produce, all grains, they are permissible. Now it depends what people do with them, which will make them unlawful. If you take a particular fruit or seed or grain and you make drugs out of it, it's not going to be permissible. But primarily, it is permissible. And if you use it in a large quantity that could be toxic for you, again, that is not permissible. But generally, they're all permissible. Depending on what you do, that's what will make it haram. So كُلُوا مِن ثَمَرِهِ, eat of its fruit, إِذَا أَثْمَرَ, when it bears fruit. Meaning, when it yields, when the fruit is ripe. وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ, and also give its due. Also give its haqq. حَقَّهُ, what does it mean by this? Give its haqq, يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ, on the day of its harvest. Hasad is from the root letters ha, sad, dal. And hasada is to harvest. And hasad is that harvest which is done at the right time. For example, the fruits, they are ripe. The crop is ready. Then you harvest. Then you go pick the fruit. Then that is at the right time. But if you pick the fruit too early, or if you pick the fruit too late, is that going to be beneficial? No. Which harvest is good? That which is done at the right time. So hasad is harvest at the right time, and haseed, which is another word that is used in the Quran, that is used for destruction of the crop. That is used for the destruction of the crop, because it was harvested at the wrong time. So آتوا حقه يوم حصاده, give its due on the day of its harvest. Meaning the day that you go pick the fruit, the day that you harvest your field. On that day, make sure you give the haqq as well. What does it mean by حقه? حقه has been understood in two ways. First of all, its haqq, its due. And what does it refer to? The produce, the crop, the fruit. And what is its haqq? It refers to zakat. Meaning on the day of harvest, make sure you give the zakat that is due on that harvest. Generally, when you have gold or when you have something like that, when do you pay the zakat? After a year. But zakat that is paid on produce, on land, that is given on the day of harvest. That is due when? On the day of harvest. And it is known as ushr. Ayn, sheen, ra. Ushr. And what is ushr? It's from ashara. What does it mean? 10. So it is 1/10. How much is it? 1/10. And others say it is half. Allahu a'lam. Half of 1/10. So it is either 1/10 or 1/20. So وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ, and give its due. Others have said that حَقَّهُ refers to his haqq, meaning Allah's haqq. Allah's haqq. And what does it refer to? Sadaqah. Remember that Surah Al-Anam is a Makki surah. When were the commands given? In Medina. Zakat was also made obligatory where? In Medina. So in Makkah, what does it mean by وَآتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ? According to majority of the scholars, it refers to sadaqah. Because at that time, zakat was not mandatory. But later on, when it did become mandatory, then we can understand this as give the zakat on the day of harvest. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا, and do not be excessive. Do not be extravagant. Do not squander. Tusrifu from the root letters, sin, ra, fa. And what does israf mean? Israf is to overspend. When it comes to money, it is to overspend. To spend beyond the limit. To spend on what a person cannot afford. Like for example, a person knows his earning is only 3,000, 4,000 a month. But he goes on spending 5,000 every month. That is beyond his capacity. Isn't it? So it is israf. He is overspending more than he can afford. More than he can afford. And when a person does this, what does he do? He either deprives himself or he is depriving those on whom it is mandatory on him to spend on. Especially, for instance, if a person is spending on one thing more than what is necessary. For instance, a person makes 4,000 and he has a very expensive car for which he has to pay a lot of money every month on gas, on service, etc. On maintenance. Similarly, he has a phone or he has a membership or something for which he has to pay a lot of money. He is spending more than he can afford, and all that he's left is 1,500 at the end of the day. From which he's supposed to spend on his family, their food, their needs, their housing. And what's going to happen? If he is spending too much on himself, on one particular side, then he is definitely going to neglect others. isn't it? He's definitely going to neglect others. So israf is when a person overspends in one particular avenue, as a result of which others get neglected. As a result of which others get neglected. And it is mandatory on him to spend on them. It is mandatory on him to spend on them. Similarly, a person giving sadaqah every month, 2/3 of his paycheck. He's left with 1/3. He can barely afford food for himself. He can barely afford food for his family. And his children are crying. We need this, we need that. His wife is upset. But he's like, no, we should definitely give sadaqah every month. And he's giving more than he can afford. If you can afford, go ahead. Nobody's going to stop you. But if you cannot afford, and because of that you're neglecting those on whom it is mandatory on you to spend, then that is israf. Even if you're spending in a good cause. Remember that. Even if you're spending in a good cause. Because a person might say, I'm giving sadaqah. I'm giving it to the poor. Okay, you can give it to the poor. But it is your duty to spend on your family. We learned that Ibn Jurayj, he said that this ayah was revealed concerning Thabit ibn Qais ibn Shammas, who plucked the fruit of his date palms. And then he said to himself, this day, every person who comes to me, I will feed him from it. So he kept on feeding them until the evening came, and he ended up with no dates. What was left for himself? Nothing. What was left for his family? Nothing. What was left for next year so that he could invest again? Nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, آتُوا حَقَّهُ يَوْمَ حَصَادِهِ. Yes, give its due, give charity, give zakat on the day of harvest, but don't be excessive even in spending in the right cause. Don't, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves moderation. Then others have said that لَا تُسْرِفُوا, israf over here, what it means is wasting. That give its due, and at the same time what you're using, don't waste it. Don't squander. Like for example, sometimes what do people do? If they have extra, obviously they cannot use it. If you go buy a lot of fruit, obviously you can't eat it all yourself. You can't. Sometimes people own lands, and whenever there is harvest, they get particular, whatever produce they've grown, they get bags and sacks full of that particular vegetable or fruit. Obviously they cannot eat it all themselves. So what should they do? Should they just let it rot in the house and eventually throw it away? No. Okay, you paid the zakat. But then, whatever extra you have, if it's beyond your need, don't waste it. Don't waste it. Give it to someone else. Because sometimes we buy a lot of stuff, we don't use it ourselves, we don't give it to others, it sits in our house, it sits in our refrigerator for days, it sits in our closets, in our storerooms for months, and eventually when we see, this is old-fashioned now, I can't wear this anymore, I can't use it, what do? We throw it away then. Because it's not even worth giving in charity. Because generally what do people choose to give in charity? What they don't need themselves and what's not worth using or wearing anymore. But it's gone so bad that you can't even give it to somebody else who could use it. So la tusrifu, don't waste. Give it to somebody else who can use it. Thirdly, it has been said that la tusrifu, don't do israf, because israf also includes spending in sin. Spending in sin, in sinful ways. So la tusrifu, don't spend in sinful ways. So on the day of harvest, give the haqq of Allah, give the zakat, give sadaqah, and don't spend what you have obtained in sin. So for instance, what would mushrikeen do? They would dedicate a part of it to who? To their idols. So la tusrifu. This also falls in israf. إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. Indeed, Allah does not like those who do israf. Those who waste. Those who overspend. Those who neglect where they should spend. Those who spend in sin. Allah does not like such people. So we see in this ayah, 3 commands have been given. 3 commands have been given. After mentioning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you with all of this fruit and vegetable, different types, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us 3 commands. First of all, kulu, eat. When? إِذَا أَثْمَرَ. Eat of the fruit when it yields. Some people, what do they think? That it is piety to abstain from food. To abstain from good food. Rather, it is a form of worship. Eating good food, eating the produce of the earth is what? It is an act of ibadah. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us over here, kulu. So if you follow this command of Allah, what are you doing? Obeying Him. And what does obedience to Allah mean? Worship. And if this was the case, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want us to enjoy this food that He has created, He would not have created this variety. Or He would have told us that this and this is forbidden upon you. Eat only this fruit, eat only this vegetable. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made all of them permissible for us. All of them He has made permissible for us. So what does it show? He has created them for our benefit. Therefore, it would be an act of ibadah on our part if we use these blessings, we enjoyed them, and we showed gratitude. Because remember, when a person uses a blessing that Allah has given him, that is actually a form of gratitude. That is a form of shukr. For instance, you prepare some food for your guests. They come over, you offer them the food and they say, no thank you, I don't want to eat. Or they eat very little. How do you feel? They didn't appreciate what you did. Isn't it? You feel like that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created so much variety, and He has made all produce permissible for us. Who are we to say, no, I'm not going to eat this out of piety. I'm not going to eat this because I want to come closer to Allah. No. The Prophet ﷺ, he ate good food. He ate tayyib food. And the produce of the earth is of the most tayyib foods. The second command that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us over here is that we should give the due of produce on the day of harvest. What does this show? This shows the obligation of giving the ushr on the day of harvest. Some say it's mandatory to give ushr on the day of harvest. And others say it's not mandatory on the day, but soon after. Because it's possible you take the 1/10 out, but then what happens? You're unable to give it on the same day. But you have it separated. You could give it the next day. You could give it the day after. But the day has been mentioned. Why? Because when the fruit is fresh, when the produce is fresh and people are looking, especially the hungry and the needy, they want it right away. So give it on the same day, and it is best to give it on the same day. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has punished those people who don't give the share of the poor and needy on the day of harvest. We learn in Surah Al-Qalam, ayat 18 to 33, that إِذْ أَقْسَمُوا لَيَصْرِمُنَّهَا مُصْبِحِينَ وَلَا يَسْتَثْنُونَ فَطَافَ عَلَيْهَا طَائِفٌ مِّن رَبِّكَ وَهُمْ نَائِمُونَ فَأَصْبَحَتْ كَالصَّرِيمِ. That when the people of the garden, what did they do? They swore to pick the fruit of the garden early in the morning, without saying if Allah wills, or without making any exception for the needy and poor. Then there passed by on the garden a visitation, meaning a fire, from your Lord at night, burning it while they were asleep. So the garden became black by the morning, like a pitch dark night in complete ruins. So when a person does not give the haqq of those who deserve, then what happens? What he has does not have any barakah in it. It's possible it doesn't get destroyed, but believe me, there will be no barakah. If you have money and you don't give zakat on it, you will find no barakah in that money. If you have time and you don't use it for the sake of Allah, you will find no barakah in your time. If you have energy and you don't use it for the sake of Allah, you will find no barakah in that energy. The children, what happens with them? If they have something and they don't want to share it with others, for example, if they're given a chocolate bar or candy, what do? They hide it. And when they hide it, they even forget where they kept it. So, nobody gets to eat it, neither them nor anybody else. This is what happens when people are stingy, when they don't give the right of others. Remember, zakat is from purification. What does zakat mean? Purification and increase. So, when zakat is given, it purifies the wealth. It increases the wealth. And if we don't give it, there will be no barakah. So, a person should not just eat of the produce himself, but he should also feed others. Thirdly, we also learn from this ayah about the prohibition of doing israf. The prohibition of israf. That do not waste even in eating. Do not waste even in eating. Or do not waste by not giving to others. Do not be excessive by giving everything away. Do not be excessive by eating everything yourself. There should be moderation. A person should eat, a person should consume, a person should spend. All of this, how? In moderation. We learn from the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ يَدَكَ مَغْلُولَةً إِلَىٰ عُنُقِكَ وَلَا تَبْسُطْهَا كُلَّ الْبَسْطِ. And do not make your hand as chained to your neck. Meaning, you've chained it to your neck and you're not sharing it with anybody. Or extend it completely. That you are giving everything away and keeping nothing for yourself or your family or the next year. We learn from a hadith in Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَالْبَسُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ إِسْرَافٍ وَلَا مَخِيلَةٍ. Eat, drink, and clothe yourselves without extravagance or arrogance. Eat, drink, وَالْبَسُوا, and also wear clothes. Clothe yourself without extravagance and without arrogance. Sometimes what happens? We're not that particular about eating, but when it comes to wearing clothes, buying clothes, we do a lot of israf. If we have worn one particular outfit at an occasion, we will never repeat that outfit again. Never. Even if it costs a lot of money, through which somebody could get a lot of food for many months. Literally, people spend so much money on their clothes, they will wear it once or twice and that's it. And the same money could be given to somebody else, could be given to the hungry, to the needy, to the poor. Recently somebody forwarded an article. The article was titled 150 rupees. 150 rupees is like $1, maybe a little more than that. So they had mentioned about how before Eid, it was basically a journalist, he had gone to this particular marketplace in Pakistan where you get everything and a lot of poor needy people were there as well. And there was this place where people were selling second-hand clothes. And sweater, clothes, shawls, they were like 200 rupees. 200 rupees is how much? Maybe $2.50, $3 maximum. And there was an old woman who was standing over there with her son. And they asked the person how much the particular sweater was, and he said 200, not less than 200. And they were just standing there quietly in a state of complete helplessness. And then he asked that poor woman and the son that, what are you here to get? And they said, the sweater. And they said that, why didn't you get it? They're like, it's 200 rupees and we have only 70 rupees. He said, do you really need the sweater? He said, yes. The last sweater I got was 2 years ago. And now it's torn and it's also small on me. That's the only sweater I have. And you know, this year in Pakistan, it was so cold. 0 degrees, -2. Just imagine you're outside without a sweater. We buy one sweater on top of another sweater. We wear it once, we wear it twice, we say we don't like it, it sits in our closet, it goes in suitcases, in the storage. After years and years, we open it, we say we don't like it, we throw it away. There are people who are desperate even for one sweater, one pair of socks. La tusrifu, don't do israf. Why is it that when we're buying something that we like for ourselves, we will spend so much money? $60, $80, $150, no problem. I like that sweater. Yes, I have another one that is very similar to it, but I like this one. Okay, you get it. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you that money. But don't forget the needy. Don't forget them. Because they're desperate for even the bare minimum. People spend a lot on bridal outfits. And not just one outfit. Not just one outfit, multiple outfits. And one outfit could help someone who is extremely poor maybe make a washroom in their house. Maybe get food every day. And they were mentioning about children who had been standing outside soup kitchen since 8 in the morning. At 2 p.m., they got a bowl of lentils, a little bit of bread, which they took to their families, and that was their breakfast. And there are days in which they stand all day long and they get no food because there was no sponsor for that day. Nobody sent money in the soup kitchen that day. And the children will stand all day in the heat of the sun without getting any food. La tusrifu. We go to the grocery store, we buy so much food. We bring it home, we waste it. We cook it, we say we don't like it, we don't eat it. And there are people who are dying out of hunger. Every mother complains about the fact that their child is not eating. Every single mother complains about the fact that their child is not eating. Think about the hungry children. who are standing outside soup kitchens all day, waiting for a bowl of soup, waiting for a little bit of bread. That's their meal of the day. لا تسرفوا. Can we not afford $1 out of every grocery that we do? Can't we? We buy a chocolate bar for that money. As we're standing waiting in the aisle, we'll just pick up a chocolate bar, 2, 3. We'll pay that much money just to satisfy our palates. That could be somebody's food for the day. We need to take this seriously. That on the day that you get your money, on the day that you get your food, think about the needy as well. Even if it's 50 cents, even if it's just $1, it means a lot to someone. A lot. We just don't see it. But it means a lot to someone. لا تسرفوا. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Kulu washrabu, without israf, without extravagance, and without arrogance. Sometimes we have a lot, we wear it, we use it, and we're very arrogant. We have heard all of these stories, but we don't realize their seriousness until and unless we see something like this with our own eyes. So those of you who sometimes go on vacation to travel, go to these countries as well. And take your children to such places. Make them see how people are living. Somebody I know, they went to Pakistan as well. And they went to help out at one of the camps where all the refugees were. Again, it was winter, it was extremely cold, and there were people wearing thin clothes, without any warm clothing whatsoever. And they were living in tents. No heating. No heating whatsoever. And they had never seen poverty like that. And they came back crying and crying and crying. They couldn't take it. They couldn't bear it. Seeing all that poverty, they couldn't take it. And they left all their clothes over there. Why? For poor people to wear. Sweaters. We have multiple sweaters. They don't even have one sweater. One sweater. We have multiple socks. Every day we choose which pair of socks to wear. Okay, which sweater do I wear today? Which one inside? Which one outside? Which shawl? Which hijab? It's mentioned about this documentary in which it was shown that a person visited an area where there were floods and people were suffering from a lot of poverty and hunger. And they visited a family, 8 children, and the food that they were having was just bread with onions. And he said, he tasted their food. The onions were very hot, very spicy. And he said, how can you eat it? The father said, we've put the spice ourselves so that the children eat less. Because we can't afford other food. We don't have other food. How many onions do we waste? How much spice do we waste? How much salt we waste? How much bread we waste? The same dollar could go to someone else in another country. Okay, fine, we cannot get the bread to them, but at least we can send $1 to them. And each one of us can.